Welcome to Moving Digital Health, a podcast series from MindSea Development. I'm your host, Ruben Hall, CEO of MindSea. Each episode, we sit down with leaders and innovators in healthcare to hear their personal stories and explore how they're moving digital health forward. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Pascal McCarthy, an innovator at the intersection of sports, health, and technology. He's the founder and CEO of Parados, a company poised to change how we understand human movement. Pascal, welcome to the show.
Thanks, nice to be here.
Now, you have a rare background as a former athlete in two different sports, neuromechanics researcher, and now a tech CEO. Can you tell us how those experiences you faced as an athlete fed into what you're doing at Parados?
Yeah, I think most of them really gave me the itch that I want to scratch. Kind of saw behind the curtains in some situations and was on both sides of being an athlete, being a coach, being a trainer, and saw the imperfections, I guess, in most of those things. And so yeah, that motivated me to carry out my own solution.
Now, did you have any injuries specifically that kind of led you into that side of like the diagnose and rehab part of it as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't keep count of all of them, but I just know it started with my Achilles tendon when I was 7 years old. So just talking to a
Wow.
lot of experts about that. Yeah, even when I think back, or it's hard to believe that I tore my Achilles that young. But it's kind of started there. Every couple of years, it was either an ankle, knee, hip problem. Ended up having knee surgery before I turned 20, and then just constant like jumper's knee, sprained ankle here and there, and then eventually cut short my professional law career, and then that sent me back to school, which set me on the path to Parados.
And what did you do in school exactly?
My bachelor's was in mechanical engineering, so I did that while playing volleyball and baseball, and then I went back to do a master's in technology management and entrepreneurship. It was basically taking students with a STEM background, with a STEM bachelor's degree, and introducing them to entrepreneurial side of things, finance a little bit, to be able to build the technology solutions and then also manage the growth of them. That's really where I got kind of the bit by the bug of entrepreneurship. I got to see that I can really help solve some problems that are near and dear to me.
Okay. And you say you lead with your love for learning and teaching. How does that passion shape the mission of your company, making those complex health science accessible to everyone?
Yeah, from I guess well in sports and coaching is really where I learned that I like teaching, and then while I was playing volleyball was kind of bored in the middle of the days because and picked up a job teaching at the local kind of like college prep school in France, and then yeah, kind of just realized that across the board I like learning and teaching. I think I kind of fell into being a founder. Didn't really realize that it was all learning and teaching, and constant learning and teaching. But yeah, that ended up really making it interesting to stay as a founder. Looked at it, kind of other jobs. Most of them, what I saw was a potential plateau, whereas you kind of never have to stop working on yourself, as you know.
Yeah, definitely. I can relate a lot actually. I played sports in university and do quite a bit of coaching in basketball with my kids, and certainly the reward of seeing that growth in the players throughout the season, individually and as a team. It's almost addictive. Like you get get a lot of reward back from that. I was fascinated by the story you shared about the professional hockey player. So, could you walk our listeners through that case from the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we worked with the NHL team. They have at least three, typically like three teams of experts: the medical team, the therapy team, the skating team, the shooting team, And so this one player in a team that took their skating very seriously and kind of have won a few Stanley Cups in the last decade or so. They had a player come in. The medical team said back pain. The therapy team said tight hips. The skating team said he can produce twice as much power in one leg as the other. They all came up with different diagnoses and different potential solutions. And then we ran them through simple screening, so just posture, squat, and gait. From that, it was pretty clear to see there was some kind of imbalance between his knees and his hips. Like every time he went down, he would hitch on one side, then come back up crooked, and then through that, they went back, decided to measure his bones, and then figured out that one of his femurs is an inch longer than the other. Then they x-rayed his hip. Turned out his hip bone was completely deformed from compensating for over 20 years playing at a high performance level, lifting weights every day. And then from that they came to the conclusion he was kind of a ticking time bomb. Like we know it's kind of something's going to break down. We just don't know when. And so that was a big issue for them. They kind of found out that even at the highest levels of care, even with the best experts in the world, it's easy to miss something when you're looking through your own lens, and rather than maybe starting an objective point and working through a process of elimination. So that was really interesting to see how some of those really common things can slip through the cracks when you're not taking at least a combination of an objective and a subjective approach.
And how common are those, kind of asymmetrical differences in the like skeletal structure?
Yeah. We looked in the research more. It seems like over 90% of people have at least half a centimeter difference that ends up causing a problem over the long term. So it's I heard a lot of stories of people that have had orthopedic surgery, and coming out of the surgery, they realize that their legs are a different length. They have a new hip or had knee surgery. Go back to their specialist and say, like, it feels like I'm limping more on this side. And their expert I've always heard something along the lines of, you were already kind of imbalanced before you came in. You're just realizing it now that you had surgery because it's different than what it was before. And then we get used to it. We develop kind of these patterns to compensate for it. And for a lot of people, it's not obvious enough to notice it in the short term, but there's always kind of something that pops up long term.
Mm-hmm. It also highlights like how the different experts can look at the same athlete and see completely different problems because they're so focused on their specialty or their lens. How much of an issue is that type of siloed thinking in sports and general healthcare?
Yeah, especially I think with the symptom-based approach that pretty much every expert in North America is kind of motivated to do with the traditional healthcare system, the kind of sausage factory, or different people have different names for it, but essentially getting someone in and out as fast as possible. It's all too common. It'd be hard to put a number because I think we can't even identify all the problems that it leads to. It has to be the huge majority of cases, and so that's what I'm trying to kind of that's what we are doing, is taking more of a root cause approach rather than the symptom based, which leads to some oversight, I guess, in a huge amount of situations.
So can you break down Parados, the solution, how it works, like step by step? What does a clinician actually do when they use it, and what are the benefits or outcomes coming out of that?
Absolutely, yeah. We don't mess too much with the current workflow of things. So the best way kind of we found to adopt to integrate a product or to get widespread adoption is really to change what happens around the typical workflow. So patients can record themselves walking, squatting, basic functional movements to prepare that information for the expert. So I often say, similar to doctor or dentist, where they have someone that prepares all the information, helps kind of assist them in making the decision, but really getting the expert to come in, make the final decision, and decide next steps, because that's where their time is best used. That's really how what we're designed for, is to make the most of their time by allowing the whole process to be kind of self-driven and by patients, and to be engaging, educational. So you record the videos before and after the session, and then it's really just a rapid test tool you can do from home, from anywhere really.
So how many videos might a patient record of different movements or different angles?
Yeah, typically the three main movements where you can spot the huge majority of problems are posture, squat, and walking. Like they're the building blocks of movement. And so from 6 videos, one from the front and the side, that we're able to to really screen and monitor the huge 90+% of situations. And then if once you have something specific, like if you have a knee problem that you specifically want to address because maybe that's your biggest vulnerability at this point, or that's your weak spot, it would only be 2-3 videos depending on what you're trying to improve. So I could go through a ton of situations, whether it's kind of preventing falls or recovering from a knee injury. We just help measure that, kind of what's the one metric you want to measure to really improve, to get the most out of your rehab. What are the 2-3 exercises you can do, and what's the one thing that we can measure to put you on that right path.
Mm-hmm. And from the technology perspective, what exactly is happening in the background? Like, how are those videos being processed? What are the key data points you're pulling out of that?
Yeah, so similar to a video call when we're on Zoom or whatever, when it picks out your silhouette, blurs the background. That's the first step. And then we use a huge data set collected in a motion capture lab that are in universities and hospitals, and we predict where your joints are based on that silhouette. So it's that part we're constantly improving and working on. And then depending on the situation, we either measure how fast you walk, how much you limp, what's the difference in symmetry, maybe how much lower is your right shoulder than your left shoulder. And it really breaks down to 4 main categories: is mobility, symmetry, consistency, and stability across all kinds of movements. That's always what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. And so is it mapping all the joints in the body, or are there just key, core movement joints that you're looking at?
Yeah, different models, different approaches. We map pretty much all the joints, other than, I guess, your hands. You got most of your joints in your fingers and toes. So, but otherwise, we map everything from the ankle to the neck. What's not usually, it's not often looked at, I think, or often enough, is the ankle, because everything, I guess, starts at the ankle. If you have an ankle problem, it's going to become a knee, a hip, a back, a shoulder, a neck problem, because everything starts from the ground up. So we really want to focus on most joints, and especially the lower body.
And what does the clinician see? So once you capture the videos, they've been analyzed. How is that data presented to them and distilled in an actionable way?
Yeah, it comes out as both like a report, just a easy to understand report for patients, and then for experts, they get a detailed breakdown of the key metrics they use to make decisions. So if I'm trying to prevent falls, or maybe help someone recover from a knee problem, I'd be looking at how fast are they walking, how many steps per minute, how much are they favoring one side when they're walking, how big are their strides, how much time do they take in between every stride. And so it's really the small but important details about someone's walking patterns, and and range of motion. I guess I keep going back to gait because that is usually the most telling and the most widely used um, movement to be analyzed. But yeah, those are some of the main metrics that we focus on. I think we have quite a few dozen, so won't go through all of them.
And how does this, save time or improve the efficiency for the clinician? Like, how are we, measuring how much better this is than the current standard?
Yeah, good question. The it's always a trade off for clinicians to kind of how accurate can I get data or how fast can I make the decision. And so we are focused on improving that trade off to get data that's accurate enough to make a good decision rather than get no data and kind of it be a guessing game, or get comprehensive data but it take me an hour and a half, $1,000 or so, and I have to set up bring everyone together at the same time in the same place in a motion capture lab, plug them in with all this equipment. So we're that really the ideal middle ground for screening and monitoring, so that you can do it anytime, any place, and really improve the frequency of testing. Because that's usually the problem for example, my brother worked for the Blue Jays. What I saw even with them is that they would do a comprehensive analysis, but once a year, and I might get injured twice in between each analysis. So how can I really be sure that the steps that I'm taking, the exercise program that I'm given, is the best thing for me at the time? If it's only getting revisited once a year with data to back it up. So yeah, improving that frequency of testing and the speed of testing really helps them correct the path more often and with something to back it up. And
Uh,
really to get the buy-in from the patient as well, because oftentimes if I'm as the patient, I kind of see it's just a guessing game, or at least that I think it's a guessing game. It's not always as motivating or as convincing to me to follow the exercise program.
So Parados can be used remotely, and the video is just uploaded. And like I say, the higher level of frequency for more check-ins, more eyes on the issues. Yeah, certainly makes a lot of sense for that situation. How about just an individual? Like, can they use Parados themselves just to get that information for, let's say you're like an amateur athlete, does, local marathons and that sort of thing. Is that a tool you can just use on your own, or is it always in combination with a coach or a clinic that's helping to do that expert level analysis for you?
Yeah, there are absolutely some people who are able to do it themselves. Like we've designed it really for experts because I think that's the best way to get a system that gets buy-in, credibility across the board. And I think it's a lot easier to start at a high level and kind of make it for the masses rather than start with a product that doesn't really take the approach that the best, highest end experts take, and then try to change it from there. So it's really for anyone, and even if we're going through an expert, what we are doing is giving immediate feedback to the person. So even if I don't diagnose or recommend, at least I can know as I'm uploading my video that I am walking 10% slower this week than last week, and so I might be able to kind of draw some conclusions, or see that, I don't know, connect that to, I know my Oura ring told me I didn't sleep nearly as well this week. That might have played a part in it, and that might not be something that I would realize or maybe even communicate to the expert, if I'm not aware of kind of the outcomes and the measurements. So it's really, yeah, it's a tool that for us is to inform and educate everyone, and to make everything more on demand, more personalized, and more documented, more measured.
And I'm curious what the typical treatment plan is for someone who has this like skeletal asymmetry. Obviously, you can't just like add or remove length to your femur, or there's certain things that's just the way it is. But then like how do you compensate that in a healthy way as opposed to creating these imbalances?
Yeah, that's something that really interested me as well. And when we came to that player, I remember the one of the coaches after he figured it out saying something along the lines of like he'd be perfect for track because it's a lot easier for him to turn left. And so if you were doing a full sprint, it's a lot. He'd have a natural kind of tilt that you're looking for
Yeah, a
in a full
natural lean
sprint.
to the left.
Yeah. So it's really like it's case by case. It's 100% case by case, and that's um, what if you're an archer, maybe you want some kind of a balance. If you want to be able to kind of hold better with one arm and pull back with the other. If you're a hockey player, and so some of these imbalances are you're born with, and then some of them are developed as well. You kind of, for example, you look at soccer players. Most of them after a decade or two will have bow legs, and it's really from sport to sport. Completely depends. You might just give them a strengthening or stabilizing program where they have to double up on one side, or you just want to stretch them out, make sure that they stretch out that hip or that side more. And so that's really why I think the frequent assessment approach helps because it's all kind of trial and error. It's all a get to some degree a guessing game, but the more you can check in, the more data you get, the more you can kind of narrow the possibilities and improve the outcomes.
Yeah, and I think that's really the key that you hit on there is the more accurate data you have on any condition, and especially as it over time as well, like frequent recaptures of that data, you just have more information to make better decisions for better outcomes for the patient. So looking into the future, let's say, 5 years, what's the ultimate vision for, how Parados might impact how we assess health and movement?
Yeah. The goal that we're working towards, the North Star, is really to be what I call like a large movement model, to be the first large movement model, and to based on where you are, where you want to get, and how you're currently moving, and what your goal is, to be able to draw the path between the two and kind of constantly check in. And so, um, for example, if I want to run faster, if I want to jump higher, if I want to sprint faster, those are three different training programs. And depending on my starting point, then the kind of possible, the ideal training program, there's a million different possibilities. And so I want to be able to have that context and combine both the kind of where you are right now and the objective data that we have to draw the best path forward. That's in any situation. So that's why we're in a lot of universities and in most health and movement science departments in universities and continuous education programs. So for kinesiologists, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, physiatrists, and so on, to be sure that it can be used in any situation and that we have the tools to be able to help any kind of movement imperfection, I guess, and improve the path forward. And then as we're doing that, I've come into a lot and with my research, and then also with some of our partners, our nonprofits, we're looking at drawing the correlations between your mental state and your physical state. Because just for example, like the common sayings, hanging your head or dragging your feet, where they're so, I guess, well recognized from the human eye, but they're not necessarily measured yet through technology. And I think that we can do a lot better at identifying potential kind of problems, whether it's from a physical perspective or mental perspective, whether it's because you have concussions or maybe you have trauma that you're working through, to be able to identify any imperfections early and kind of set a correction path for it. That's really where I want to get long term. Whether it's CTE, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, any kind of movement disorder, neurodegenerative disorder, it's kind of measuring how does the body affect the mind and vice versa, and how can we do that through an objective measure like movement.
Very interesting. Well, certainly a lot of potential and a lot of places you can kind of expand and explore into. So, really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today, Pascal.
My pleasure. Is great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to everyone for listening to the Moving Digital Health podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, please go to movingdigitalhealth.com to subscribe to the MindSea newsletter and be notified about future episodes.